For years, the American public has been victimized by the so-called cinematic geniuses, telling us time and again to see inferior movies, leaving us bitter and lost with nowhere to turn. But no more! This travesty of justice cannot and will not continue, because we now have the Cinema Judge!
Hello and welcome to the Cinema Judge. Thank you for taking time out of your busy lives to listen. I understand you could be watching anything, listening to anything. There are 1,000 different things you could be doing other than listening to this. And that fact that you could be doing all that is not lost on me whatsoever. Now, for all my loyal judge heads out there who tune in every episode, whether it's a tentpole, indie, or anything in between, I am eternally grateful for you guys always showing up, and most of you without even me begging you to. So that in its own, thanks so much. Because like I always say, every time I see a city, state, country show up as a listen during the week, you know I do my happy dance. I'm not even going to lie about it, and I do it. So consider that every time you give me a little click and listen, eventually there will be a happy dance, and it won't be pretty, but it has to be done. And if you're one of those people who listens to the very end of the show, I always try to give you a shout out at the end. My shout out is for the current episode. If you happen to listen to a previous episode, a few down the line, it shows up and I really appreciate it. But me seeing where you listen to is kind of difficult. So don't think I'm being a jerk by not saying thank you, because I still am thrilled. I just might not be able to tell where you listen from. So if you want a shout out, make sure you always listen to the current episode out at that time, because then almost guaranteed you'll get a thank you and a shout out from me. So thank you all very much. Like I said, feel free to listen to the old episodes or listen to the current one. Movies are movies. Now, if you're a first time listener, welcome aboard. I hope you enjoy our show. And if you do, please tell a friend. Spread the word, the more the merrier. Or give me a like. So let me tell you a little bit about our show. First of all, clearly, we are not journalists. And you're going to find that out really quick, because I'm going to be butchering names all day long. So instead of apologizing for it every time I do it, I'm doing it now just to get out of the way, and you know and I know it's going to happen. This is just a heads up. You see, we haven't gone to any elite Ivy League school and paid thousands of dollars to have somebody else tell us what it takes to make a good movie. We're smarter than that, and so are you. Nor have we traveled the world and spoken to the old wise men and asked about the deep, hidden meanings behind Hollywood's visions. We here at the Cinema Judge, we haven't done any of these things. But what we have done is watch a lot of movies. Some good, some not so good. And our goal here at the Cinema Judge is to have one thing and one thing only. That's an enjoyable movie experience. Now, I've been doing this show as a cable access show in Bloomington, Minnesota for now over 20 years. And what we do there is this. The movie studios, they send us interviews, movie clips, on-the-set footage. And when they used to have world premieres, they'd send us that footage too. And what I do is this. I edit the interviews and movie clips together to make one giant infomercial. I let them pitch the movie to you. In these interviews, they often explain what attracted them to the script. And they usually talk about the themes of the movie and why they think you should see it and what they hope you take away from the film. I simply collect the interviews as evidence for you, the jury, and present them so you can decide if you want to see the movie or not. I will never, ever tell you not to see a movie. All that matters is what you think. I, for one, despise when somebody tells me not to see something. Because just on a personal note, I like to see as many movies as I can. Comedies, action, drama, I don't care. If it's out there and if I have the time, I will see it. Because you never know you're going to like a film until you watch it. Not if somebody else tells you not to. That's ludicrous. As long as I can remember, I've enjoyed watching any movie and all movies as much as I could. I got so much joy anytime I found a gem of a movie that somebody else said not to see. Like I've said before, my friends and I, we used to purposely rent bad movies or ones that people say don't see. And those are the greatest movies that like stick in my head. Those memories of laughing at a movie, enjoying it, Not necessarily a blockbuster or a critically acclaimed movie. No, that doesn't stick with you all the time. Those memories of laughing at a movie and just enjoying it for what it is. So in a nutshell, all I say is this: watch everything you can, because you just never know when you'll make that memory. Like I always say, any movie is somebody's favorite movie. Now, if you're interested in watching this TV version, go to Bloomington, Minnesota's webpage. That's BLM, as in Bloomington.mn/BTV-shows. And when you get there, type in Cinema Judge, it's 2 words, and then several episodes will show up. Obviously not 20 years worth. That'd be totally impossible. But there are a few there to watch anytime you want, 24 hours a day. And if you're wondering what separates the TV version from the podcast version, it's really simple. The TV version, you can watch the interviews and the film clips. And if they have on-the-set footage, you'll be able to see that too. And that's really the key. When they have the on-the-set footage, I love that stuff. I just eat that up. I just throw it on the show and just let it play out. But obviously I can't do that on the podcast because, well, this is a podcast. And also what separates the TV version from this version is you don't see or hear me on that at all. It's all footage and information, 0 interruptions from this guy. Now, approaching the bench today, we have The Falcon and The Winter Soldier. This is the latest Marvel/Disney TV show. It follows the events of Avengers Endgame. Sam Wilson, Falcon, and Bucky Barnes, Winter Soldier, team up in a global adventure that tests their abilities and their patience. It stars Anthony Mackie, who plays Falcon, Sebastian Stan, who plays Bucky, and Wyatt Russell, who plays John Walker. The series is directed by Carrie Skoglund. The series is created by and written by Malcolm Spellman. First, here's a trailer for The Falcon and the Winter Soldier.
So, who would like to start? Mr. Barnes, why does Sam aggravate you?
15 seconds to drop. So what's our plan? Hey. Great.
Superheroes cannot be allowed to exist. I have no intention to leave my work unfinished.
The world's upside down right now.
Where do we start?
Buck, I have a plan. Oh, yeah? What is it?
Is you ready?
Here we go again, huh?
We've been grinding hard on the job. Can't take that from us. Are you ready? Is you ready? You said you ready. Ready? Is you ready? Are you ready? Is you ready?
Hello, girl, kick your ass. Gotta get that first shot off before that pussy hit me.
See? That wasn't so hard.
Are you ready? Is you ready?
Okay.
You say you ready.
What are you doing?
Whole squad ready.
Are you having a staring contest?
Are you ready? Is you ready?
Just blink. Sweet Jesus. I mean, how old are you?
It feels like it belongs to someone else. That shield represents a lot of things to a lot of people.
Symbols are nothing without the women and men that give them meaning. We need someone to inspire us again.
The world's more complicated now.
We're never gonna stop. This world is ours. There's no going back.
It doesn't have to be a war.
It already is.
lose this fight. If we do this, we're gonna do it our own way. So we're partners, co-workers. Not necessarily a team. No. We look damn good, though.
Now, coming up next, we're going to have a featurette. Now, in this featurette, they're going to talk about where the story picks up on and how important it was to have Disney Plus platform here and how they could expand on all the stories in the Marvel Universe that couldn't be just covered in just one movie. The universe has so many characters that people want to know about, and now they can. But this show just isn't an action show. It goes much deeper than that. It delves into the characters, their paths, their guilt, deals with race, and how just day-to-day life can affect these characters.
The last time we see Sam and Bucky is after Steve leaves the shield with Sam. Sam is coming to terms with what it's going to be to pick up that shield. And that's where we kick off the show.
The legacy of that shield is complicated.
When Disney Plus was announced, there was an opportunity to interweave the cinematic universe with the television universe. The world of the Falcon and Winter Soldier in the films is so big, and you want this show to feel as big and as engrossing.
I think fans will definitely get a kick out of seeing a continuation of that kind of filmmaking that those movies had.
Sam, this has to be subtle.
Got it.
The action side is so embedded in what the MCU is, but through the show, we wanted to look at the human side of the characters.
For Bucky, it's the legacy of the Winter Soldier. His anchor point to the person who knew him before he was a murder machine no longer exists. So Bucky feels unmoored in the series and is looking for his purpose. And Sam Wilson is very much doing the same thing.
When Steve first told me about the shield, the first words I said were, feels like it's someone else's.
I felt like we would be dishonest just on a human level if we had this black man just accept the symbol without having real ambivalence about it.
With this series, we've been able to give a level of sincerity and humanity to him. You get a real sense of what this character, Sam Wilson, really is.
The notion of what blackness means in America ties very much into Sam's journey through the events of the show.
There's a fight out there, and then there's our fight here. And bro, you have taken them both on.
Well, let's get to work. The scope of these 6 episodes is really amazing. I mean, it's a huge story.
Falcon and Winter Soldier are really vibrant and electric characters. So when you are thrust into the action, you sink into the narrative and where the story ultimately goes.
Okay, the next featurette talks a little bit more about the two main characters' relationship.
All right, here we go.
I like it.
Ready, and
Wait for it.
action!
It's an example of opposites attract. We couldn't be more different.
I got a vibranium arm.
And I can fly.
There are definitely days where I feel like he's gonna kill me.
What's going on in that cyborg brain of yours? Gears turning. Oh, they're malfunctioning. They're on fire.
God, I hate you.
He's like, you know, when you have a fly in your house and it just won't go away. But we have a very good dynamic.
Absolutely not.
Come on, I'm telling you, we got...
We have fun with each other, and that carries into these characters.
So what's our plan? So no plan.
Great.
I'm so excited because it's exhilarating.
It's a throwback to all those buddy comedy action movies. You just don't know if they're gonna kill each other or not.
Hello, girl, kick your ass!
Our first interview is with the writer, creator, and producer, Malcolm Spellman. He's been involved in the TV show Empire, and he wrote the screenplay for Our Family Wedding, and produced Hip Hop Uncovered, and he produced episodes for Truth Be Told. He's an incredible talent, and the best one to take this story and run with it. And I just have to say one thing. This says so much about Marvel and Disney. In so many of their projects for Disney Plus, they are taking incredible talent, young talent that hasn't been tapped before. And it's so important for these stories to be told. It takes a lot of guts, because they could have went the old-fashioned route and just used the same old writers, directors, and everything they have in the past. But they didn't. They're using all these new voices that are needing to be heard, and are giving them an opportunity, a well-deserved one. So I really can't wait for more stories like this to come forward. All these new voices, talent coming forward, because there's so many stories to be told and so many different versions. And in this interview, he talks about being able to spend much more time with these characters, not just a 2-hour movie, but a series of movies, really. So here he is talking about that.
I think the benefit of featuring these characters, all 6 of them, in a series is that we get to accelerate. We get to take people who have shined in small blips and accelerate the audience's relationship with them in a way that it took maybe 10 years of Marvel movies for you to get to know each of those Avengers in a very human way. We're doing that in 6 hours straight. And I think it's going to build a very intense bond and very intense relationship between the fans and these characters.
We're going to be hearing next from the director, Carrie Skoglund. She's directed a lot of great TV, from Power, Vikings, Sons of Liberty, Penny Dreadful, House of Cards, and tons more. She also talks about the benefit of being able to learn more about these characters with 6 episodes using the Disney Plus platform.
Oh, the benefit of featuring these characters on Disney Plus versus a feature film is that we get to spend much more time with them. I say the feature film is like the snack. This is like the meal. So we get to get inside their lives, inside their heads. We get to go on twists and turns with them because we're not racing to the finish line.
Next, we're going to hear from Anthony Mackie, who plays Falcon. You've seen him in the recent movie The Woman in the Window, Outside the Wire, Altered Carbon, Point Blank, Black Mirror, and of course, the Avengers movies, and so much more. In this interview, he talks about how this is more like a couple movies than just one movie, and you get to learn more about the characters.
Well, you get more time with them. I mean, if you look at it, a 6-hour series is like 3 movies. So you get the opportunity to get to really know the characters, really get invested in the characters, and really grow a relationship with the characters to carry forward.
Coming up next, we're going to hear from Malcolm Spellman, the creator of this series. He's going to talk about the Falcon character and how a black man deals with the passing of the shield. He's going to talk about culture and how this movie makes him more relatable because he has to deal with real life situations.
That was Sam's personal struggles just at his home life and dealing with the shield was the thing I was most excited to be to write. It just felt supremely relevant to the times where you have this black man who is dealing with the stars and stripes, and his reaction to it is appropriate for a black man, which is to push it away and have ambivalence, because that symbol without Steve does not mean the same thing to Sam, right? That symbol without Steve means oppression and adversity. And when you meet Sam at home, his roots are so deep in a black experience. He comes from a long line of black fishermen, which there's been documentaries about them and how they were treated by the banks and how society treated them. So he has an entire identity that dictates a reaction that we would have been dishonest if he had just said, oh yeah, great, I'm gonna be Cap, and not challenged it. I also think the personal story to me was exciting because it was so rooted in culture that it gives Sam a flavor that I feel like really makes him relatable to regular people. Like, you get to see him doing cooking and doing the kinds of things that real people do. And you get to see him feel uncomfortable when the police come, and we don't go crazy with it in that moment. You get to see him experience the world as a black man from the South.
Next, we're going to hear from the director, and she's going to talk about the shield and how life has changed for Sam, and how he has to help his family after being away for so long, and how race plays a part in his reaction to the shield.
Sam's life is forever changed, obviously as a result of the blip. But his life is also changed when the shield is given to him. So by Steve. So
he starts out by having to deal with not only his personal issues where the family business is failing. His sister has managed to survive during the blip while he was gone. But he's come back, and it's a changed world and a changed business, and he has to figure out what's next for his family, and also can he actually even help his family? Because that's not going to be as easy either. And there's a racial component to both what that is, alongside the shield. He's been given the shield. Well, what is it for a Black man to carry that shield? What is it for him to consider the idea of what Captain America? Is Captain America even relevant? So we really go on, we get inside Sam's life in a very meaningful way that makes us really understand some of who he is and also where he lives.
Now, coming up next, we're going to hear from Anthony Mackie, and he's going to talk about being a Black man in America, the idea of representing a country that hasn't always been there for him, and how to live with the past.
Well, as a Black man in America, the idea of representing a country that has never stood for you, taken up for you, encouraged you, built you up, afforded you opportunity, or acknowledged what you've done since you've been here makes it very difficult to put those stars and stripes on your chest and say you're representing that country. So Sam is in a position where, how does he live with the idea of what his parents, his grandparents, his great-grandparents, his ancestors went through, and that not be changed, acknowledged, or in any way, shape, or form, any thought given by the country that he's supposed to protect and represent.
Now, coming up next, we're going to play a clip from this film. In this scene, we have the Falcon, played by Mackie. He's in the airplane, and he's being told that he has to stay away from certain airspace areas to avoid an international incident. He's told to be subtle as he jumps out of the plane and has air combat with the enemy. And this is just a side note before I play the clip. After he jumps out from the plane, pretty much all you're going to hear is a lot of him flying and then some action shots and some explosions. So if this doesn't play well, I apologize, but just get the full scope of the scene. This is him jumping out of the plane and then him having some combat, just so you know.
The criminal organization known as LAF is targeting Captain Vasant, one of our military liaisons.
LAF?
Yeah, they're high-powered. We lost contact with Vasant's plane just after he took off. We need you to make sure that LAF doesn't deliver on their threat. Vasant's plane has already entered Tunisian airspace. U.S. military cannot be seen operating out there.
I got it. You guys fly low, drop me off, I fly up to intercept. No treaties violated.
First Lieutenant Torres, our intel officer, will be helping on the ground. And Sam, this has to be subtle.
Subtle. Got it. Get him!
Coming up next, we're going to hear from Malcolm Spellman, and he discusses the compelling relationship between Sam and Bucky and how it's all connected to Captain America. And now that he's gone, how do they connect?
I think the compelling thing about Sam and Bucky's relationship is that it is tethered to the most important character in the Marvel universe, right? Which is Captain America. And that relationship is now thrown into a crucible because Cap is gone. On a more profound level, as these two men who have kind of like we've associated with each other and they've been in all kinds of battles together and they had that iconic moment in Civil War, and they have a chemistry, more importantly, that makes fans feel like they know each other well. But with Steve gone, with Cap gone, what they're both realizing is we don't know each other well at all. We had a mutual best friend in common. In fact, I don't even know if we like each other.
Up next, we're going to hear from the director. She also discusses the complexities between Sam and Bucky and how they are both struggling to find themselves.
I think the complexities of Sam and Bucky's relationship that make it really worth exploring is that they're kind of two sides of the same coin, even though they seem completely like they're polar opposites. They have similar issues that they're dealing with, which is how to be relevant in a changing world. And I think these are universal issues that we all feel as well. Sam is trying to, save his family and save the family business after the blip, which has, of course, changed everything. And Bucky is trying to find his way. How is he relevant? He's 106 years old, and the world has changed, and he's having trouble fitting back in now that he has his mind back. He also is dealing with guilt issues. So the two of them are at their core kind of lonely. They've lost a friend. They both lost a very good friend. And so they also have common experience, which is they fought Thanos. I mean, they've experienced a world that very few have. So weirdly, they have a lot of common ground, and yet they're not really friends. And so they have to figure out how to become friends if indeed that happens.
Next, we're going to hear from Anthony Mackie, and he's going to talk about Sam's journey in returning after the blip and trying to fit in, dealing with loss of a friend and having to be friends with Bucky.
Sam's journey leading up to the series is him basically returning from the blip and coming home. The series picks up right after the blip. So you find these characters trying to reacclimate themselves into culture, into society, into the world that they once knew 5 years ago. And emotionally, Sam is very split. I mean, when we last saw him, he was left with his best friend telling him that he was no longer going to be Captain America and that he needed to, take on his moniker and move forward, which was the last thing Sam wanted. And then the overall idea of now having to be friends with Bucky is the icing on the cake that literally leaves him emotionally spent. Because Sam and Bucky's relationship kind of is tent-poled by Steve and both of their respect and admiration and love for him. So, he's kind of pulled in one direction and drawn in other. He's, a 50-50 split on where exactly he is as an individual post-blip as well as an Avenger.
Next, we're going to hear from Sebastian Stan, who plays Bucky. You've seen him in the film Monday, the great film, The Devil All the Time. If you haven't seen that film, make sure you see it. Again, that's The Devil All the Time. Also in Destroyer, I, Tonya, in The Martian, and on and on. In this interview, he talks about the compelling relationship between Sam and Bucky. They're pretty much stuck with each other, and they have to find common ground.
What is compelling about the relationship between Sam and Bucky at this point after the movies that makes it worth exploring is that they are both sort of left with one another, essentially, and in a world that post Steve, and they've got to figure out what they have in common and what's different between them.
Now, coming up next, we're going to have an interview with Malcolm Spellman, and he talks about the chemistry between the actors and the characters. He talks about this 12-second scene that they both shared in a previous movie. And you know what? I'm just going to have him explain it better, but I just love this interview. Check it out.
The chemistry that Sebastian and Anthony, or Sam and Bucky, have was there's a moment everybody who's a Marvel fan remembers in Civil War when the two of them are in the car. Can you move the seat forward? No. And in 12 seconds, everybody knew, from Kevin Feige to fans all around the world, that these two had something special. And it's crazy to think that in 12 seconds, what these two men were able to do was so electric that everybody who worked on this project knew exactly what the tone had to be, because it's just something that's sort of it's transcendent what those two guys have together, and it dictated everything moving forward. And the buddy cop, I think one of the great things about the history of sort of buddy two-handers is that buddy two-handers have a long legacy of tackling issues of the moment and doing it in a way that's still fun for the audience while being honest and not shying away from very, very relevant and sometimes hard-hitting topics. But it's always digestible because it has this, sort of electric back and forth fire and ice dynamic.
Coming up next, we're going to hear from the director, and she talks about their chemistry, how they're great friends on and off the set, and how truly talented they are.
Oh my goodness, Anthony Mackie and Sebastian Stan bring so much to these characters. They are fun to be with. They're personal friends. So, of course, that history and that legacy of camaraderie between them is very evident on screen. Their chemistry is fantastic. So they bring all of their senses of humor and also the gravitas, because there's plenty of times that as characters they have to be quite vulnerable. And both of them are such incredible actors. They're able to switch gears on a dime. So it's really fun to watch them.
Coming up next, we're going to have a scene where Sam and Bucky are arguing whether or not Bucky should come along on a mission. It's a well-written and acted scene. It captures their friendship and the buddy cop type tone it weaves in and out of the story.
Well, I don't trust Red Wing. Hold on a minute.
You don't have to trust Red Wing. But I'm gonna go see if he's right. Because I have a feeling they might be a part of the big three.
What big three?
The big three.
What big three?
Androids, aliens, and wizards.
That's not a thing.
That's definitely a thing.
No, it's not.
So every time we fight one of the three.
So who are you fighting now, Gandalf?
How do you know about Gandalf?
I read The Hobbit in 1937 when it first came out.
So you see my point?
No, I don't. There are no wizards.
Doctor Strange
is a sorcerer.
A sorcerer is a wizard without a hat. Think about it, right? I'm right. I just came up with that. It's crazy. But look, that's not the point. These guys aren't magical, all right? They use brute force, just like you. The incredibly annoying guy in front of me with the staring problem.
I'm coming with you.
No, you're not.
Coming up next, we're going to hear from Sebastian Stan, and he talks about the journey of Bucky and how he's trying to come to terms with his violent past.
Bucky's journey so far can be chronicled really well in the films Winter Soldier and Civil War and The Avenger. Bucky has not been healed, and he is trying his best to get ahead of his demons and finally find his place on his own, in this life.
Coming up next, we're going to hear from the director, and she's also going to talk about Bucky's journey. He's on his way to healing, but how he struggles with the guilt of what he's done.
Bucky has come a long way. He's gotten his mind back, and as a result of that, he's lost. So on the one hand, he's we hope healed, or more or less healed. Certainly, he's grappling with the fact that he remembers everything, and he is more or less in control, or he's seemingly in control now. But that has opened up all kinds of issues, which are very, very relevant to mental health conversations. Because when you get your mind back, now you've got to deal with the guilt of what you've done. And he has to atone for, he's remembering not only what he's done, but he's looking at and experiencing some of the collateral damage, which is through the people that he's affected, his actions have affected. So we get to see how he's coping with what the ramifications, what the consequences of violence really are. And that's something that's very unusual in any entertainment where violence is part of it. We rarely sort of dig under the surface of what violence, what the consequences of violence are. So Bucky is going to have to really come to terms with how to get through, how to navigate his own demons.
Next, we're going to hear from Malcolm Spellman, and he talks about how everybody in this series has baggage, and he talks about how they unpack it for us.
When the series begins, Bucky, we like to say this series began and each of the characters knocked on the door. We let them in. They walked in with their bags and put them down, right? When Bucky knocked on the door, there was a truck full of baggage. And that baggage has accumulated in all these Marvel movies and with all this Marvel mythology of a man who's been manipulated. He's 106 years old. And because he's been manipulated, he doesn't belong to any given era, least of all this era. He's killed so many people. And the fact that he remembers every one of the murders makes him believe a part of himself was the Winter Soldier. And so you take all of that and the fact that he doesn't have any family left, and the only person who ever truly accepted him for who he was, Steve, is gone. And we were like, it's such an immense thing for this kid, for this guy to tackle, that we needed to come up with a storyline that was all of that baggage concentrated into one character, that if Bucky could not find a way to make amends with him, he's going to fail as a human being. And if Bucky can find a way to be brave enough to confront this, even if the person does not accept it, he has a shot at being reborn as a human being who's not a monster and not what all that baggage says he is.
Coming up next, we'll hear from Sebastian Stan, and he talks about Bucky confronting his actions.
Well, Bucky's efforts to make amends are important because it means that he has to confront his actions, his past, himself, and that's the only way to move forward. And I think he's been, conveniently dodging it a little bit because there's always been a war calling him or some other effort, kind of taking him away from facing that. But now he's really in cold water, and he's got to. This is sort of the fork in the road for him, this show.
Now, coming up next, we'll hear from Anthony Mackie, and he talks about what Malcolm Spellman brought to the table, the deep level of understanding of the characters, and how he could write in the character's voice so well, even on a dime. They bring something to him, next thing they know, boom, a new scene is written for them, just in the right voice.
Malcolm Spellman, the writer, brought to the series a depth of a very deep level of understanding of these characters. He put us in a position where he really curated the experience for the audience, which was great. I think his life experiences, I think his background, I think his ability with exposition and not making it sound like we're telling you every beat what happens, really put us in a position to do the best work that we could. I mean, he's really talented when it comes to creating a character and being able to write in the voice of that character. There were certain times when we would do a rehearsal and we would send over like these ridiculous, like bunched up notes of what we wanted the scene to be. And 2 days later, we would have a great scene in the voice of the character. So he brought a level of ability that none of us could have matched in any way.
Coming up next, we're going to play another clip from this film. In this scene, we have Bucky and Sam, and they're in a plane, and they're discussing if they have a plan when Sam just jumps out of the plane.
1 minute to drop off, Sam. What's our plan? Great. So no plan. 30 seconds!
Enjoy your ride, Buck.
No, you can't call me that.
Why not? That's what Steve called you.
Steve knew me longer, and Steve had a plan. 15 seconds to drop!
I have a plan.
Really? What is it?
Next, we're going to hear from Sebastian Stan, and he talks about working with everybody on the set.
A glimpse of what it was like to work alongside Anthony, Kari, and everyone else on the set of The Falcon and Winter Soldier. Honestly, it was a lot of fun. It was a balance of trying to not laugh, because sometimes things would happen that would have us laughing forever, and then other times, we need to get serious. And but it was a very collaborative experience, and at the end of the day, I think we were all happy with what we got.
Coming up next, we're going to hear from the director, and she's going to talk about how everybody worked together. It was a complete team effort.
So this series has its own unique original stamp and signature. Yes, it fits into the MCU action look and the feel, of course, and that's just because it's that's baked into sort of the DNA of these characters. But the production design, the costuming, everything was much more grounded than it's been. We were a location show, so we really are in the places that we have visited. It's an international thriller, so we romp around the world. So we really tried to make it a little bit grittier, have its own unique signature for camera work, which I paid a lot of attention to perspective, where we were, who we were with, where we are in their brains, what the camera was capturing, and tried to make it as experiential as possible so that we really feel the perspectives of who we are rooting for in that moment.
Well, I hope you enjoyed our in-depth look at The Falcon and the Winter Soldier. Now, if you guys have any questions, comments, concerns, ways to improve the show, please feel free. Contact me at cinemajudge@hotmail.com. Now, this is the time of the show where I pretty much reserve for I thank all you listeners who listen every week, or you new listeners. And once again, everybody who shows up every episode, I am truly grateful. So I just want to start off by saying, everybody from the United States, thank you. And again, these next few countries are, you guys show up every one. So thank you so very much. France, Spain, United Kingdom, and Mongolia. You guys are awesome. Like I said, I don't even have to ask you to listen. You're from all the way across the world, and you're taking time to listen to this show. Thank you so much. And if you like it, hey, share it with your friend. I'd appreciate it. The more the merrier. So thank you to everybody in Minneapolis. You guys are awesome for listening. And again, this week, Hogue, Ohio. I know I'm butchering that name, but you guys, you even listened more than once. So that's a double shot for you guys. I truly appreciate it. Maybe next week, there'll be more. But I'm not getting greedy. Thank you so much. Columbus, Ohio. Thank you. Tampa, Florida. You guys are fantastic. Always stopping by and listening. And once again, Cherry Hill, New Jersey. You guys are fantastic. Thanks for stopping in. Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Thank you. You guys are always here. Prior Lake, Minnesota. Again, every episode. I'm very grateful for your time. Same thing goes with La Vista, Nebraska. Every episode, you're here. Thank you. Calabasas, California. I just love it when everybody all over the country listens. In my mind's eye, like when there's New York and California, New Jersey, everywhere around. I'm like, wow, you guys have busy lives and you listen to this show. Thank you. Like I said, France, Lakeville, Minnesota. Thank you so much for tuning in. In another New Jersey, this is Harrison, New Jersey. Thank you so much. If you like it, share it with your people. Akeley, Minnesota. Thank you. Madrid. Thank you so much. Alabama. That is so fantastic. Jackson, Alabama. I salute you. And another constant regular, Washington, Virginia. All the way out there, you're tuning in here. Thank you. And now, from across the pond, and this stuff just drives me just full of excitement. Again, I'm going to butcher this. Islington, England. Wherever Islington, England is, thank you for dropping by. Maybe you'll drop by again. If you do, thank you. Egan, Minnesota. Thank you. And there's no way I'm going to get this one right, but Ulaanbaatar. Thank you for stopping in. Well, it looks like I accomplished it once again. I maintained the whole episode. I didn't touch my bourbon one bit. So kudos to me, because we all know when I've dipped into it too soon, the show quickly goes off the rails. And that's purely evident from previous episodes in the very beginning. So I did it. So today's bourbon toast goes out to TQ and your husband. Thanks for finding this show. Thanks for following. I truly appreciate it. And Dwayne, You always sit around and listen to me ramble about movies. So I truly appreciate you putting up with me. Now, by this time, I'm assuming a lot of people have stopped listening. So I'm just going to go off script and just have a hoot. Now, I've been thinking since I've been doing the show, I should run a contest, because those who know me know that I can't finish a sentence to save my life. I stop and stammer all over. So it'd be fun if one day, if I go back on a timeline and I count how many edits I had to put in there to make up for my misspoken words or my sentences where I stop halfway or where I have giant pauses. Because let me tell you this, there's a lot. For me to finish a sentence without having me mess up or, stammer, slim to none. So anyway, I was just kind of just throwing that out there on my own thinking today. It's like, run a contest where I say, then like the next episode, I'll just say the number at the very end, like, hey, this number or that number, and to see who gets closer. That would just be a fun thing. So until next time, be well, be good, and I'm gone. I'm Jeff. Thanks for listening to The Cinema Judge.